Hello, everyone. It's Eric Molendyke here, the National Coordinator for Tetra. And today we're going to touch base with one of our volunteers in Edmonton, Rene Haasdky. Rene,
Hi
how are
there.
you?
I'm well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. And hopefully through our web series about Tetra and through Connect Together, everybody has realized great things are happening Tetra-wide, Canada-wide, and not just in Vancouver. And Rene, you have been one of the longtime volunteers in Edmonton, so I thought we'd start there and kind of tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to Tetra.
Okay. Uh, I'm actually a retired electrical contractor. And in my career, I dealt with a number of industrial customers. Besides electrical work, I did a fair bit of mechanical work on the side. You could say that I was more or less somewhat of a millwright in that respect, and that allowed me to be very familiar with mechanical items, electrical items, materials, excuse me, material sources. That's basically where I come from. I've been retired for about 5 years now, and I think I've been with Tetra for about that same amount of time. And I've really been enjoying it. Been getting some good satisfaction from it.
And how did you hear about Tetra? Like when you retired and you've done this work, how did you? I'm always fascinated because new volunteers will say, or we're always curious about how people hear about Tetra. And in Edmonton, how did you hear about Tetra?
Okay, I have some engineering friends, and one of them lent me at one point a copy of their periodical from the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists Association of Alberta, and I was reading that on a plane trip from here to North Carolina, where I had a daughter living at the time, and I ran across an advertisement for Tetra in that magazine. I read through that, and since I'm kind of mechanically inclined, I thought, oh, that sounds like it would be interesting to try. And when I got back home, I contacted the Edmonton chapter coordinator at the time, and gone on from there.
And that's another thing, Rene, that I noticed in getting to know the volunteers is you said you were an electrical contractor, but through Tetra you got to do some mechanical work and kind of expand, or put your skill set to use to help others.
Yes, that's true. In my line of work, I design the electrical circuits, and I have a mindset that can imagine things. And usually, when I approach a project, I go through that continuously in my mind to see how that would work before I even put anything on paper or explore materials.
So I've always heard, like, for athletes or different things, it's almost like visualizing it.
Oh yes, I visualize well.
Yeah. So you see it in your mind, and then you make it come to life, a reality. And when you're making these things, do you how does the process come together? Do you get feedback from the client? Do you if you were to read a request from the Edmonton chapter and somebody says, I need a cup holder, an adjustable lap tray, once you read it on paper, do you already visualize it, or do you get more of a clearer picture from the client? What helps create the clearest picture in your mind?
Well, okay. I see the request for assistance first of all, and if it's something that I look like I might be interested in or might be able to contribute to, then I make an appointment with the client. Usually visit them, except for these times in the COVID thing. But I usually visit them and uh, get a clear idea of what it is that they want. Uh, I've found in my electrical work that when you approach a problem, you have to keep asking the questions until you get it clear in your mind exactly what it is that the problem is. And I've had to do the same thing with the Tetra project. I have to ask the questions and keep asking questions. And if I can think of something that might interfere with what it is that they are visualizing, I have to keep asking the questions until it's clear in my mind what it is that they need. And from there on, my mind starts working, visualizing what might be needed. And then I usually go to a supplier like Home Depot and just kind of wander around looking at materials and get a better idea how that might work.
Well, that leans into my next question, which you just touched on, is where do you find the supplies to make the projects? Is it usually Home Depot? Is there certain stores over your time of doing this that you thought if you have a Tetra project, a certain type, you know you can get the materials here? Sometimes is it just finding something maybe that somebody might have thrown away and you think, oh, I could use this in a project?
Well, yes, I do go to Home Depot a fair bit. My family jokes that I spend a lot of time there. I think I've been there at one point, maybe 5 or 6 times in one day. But looking at all the material they have, there's another supplier called Metal Supermarkets, which deals in small items of metal. They have brasses and aluminums and steels and all different shapes and sizes, and they just sell that in small portions. So I can pick something up and experiment with that. Yeah, it's mostly the Home Depot, Lowe's sometimes, and Metal Supermarkets. If I need any wood material, Home Depot carries that also. Yeah, and it's just a matter of having something in my mind that might work and just looking at the aisles and see what I can come up with.
Sure. Well, I always ask that because you never know who might be seeing this feature, and sometimes people will ask, clients will say, your volunteers are amazing. How do they do it? And as you said, you can take something out of Home Depot, an everyday store, and make something great. So I'm always fascinated to see how things come to completion. Is there any projects over the years that you've done that stick out to you that you think that one really worked out the way I had hoped? The client was satisfied. I was happy with it.
Yes, I can think of a few. Um, there are a couple that give me particular satisfaction. Um, I had a client uh, who had to clear their mouth of saliva every so often, and in order to do that, he needed a caregiver in order to manipulate the suction device. And even in the nighttime, that caregiver had to be there. And I put together a project whereby the client himself was able to manipulate that equipment and do that for himself in the night. And that relieved him of requiring a caregiver in the night. Another one I can think of was what was called a cough assist machine. whereby the client had to have a caregiver in order to use the cough assist machine, which entailed applying a mask to his face with considerable pressure in order for the air to flow properly. And I was able to put together a device that held that mask, that was against the wall, and it could swing out and lock into place. And he could use his electric wheelchair to give him pressure against that mask so that he was able to get by without that caregiver for that procedure, which it gives me good satisfaction anyway. That's those. And there was one other project that I particularly liked. There's a group in town called the GRIT program, Getting Ready for Inclusion Today, which deals with young children, handicapped children in wheelchairs in the 3 to 7 or 8 age group, I think it was. And they needed a table on which they could work, a table that they were able to slide their wheelchair underneath, and they also wanted it adjustable for height depending on the child that was using it. So I put together a table, again with mostly from material from Home Depot, and I was quite pleased with the way it looked, and the client was quite pleased with the way it worked. They tried it out, and then they said, "Oh, that's very nice. Could you make 6 more of these, please?" So I went back and I made 6 more of them, and they're very nice, and they're colorful, you know, and with primary colors, and the children really liked them. So that was good. They had those 7, and then I think maybe a half a year or a year later, they came back and said, "You know, we really could use 8 more of those tables." So anyway, I still had all the templates and so on that I had used to build them, and so I went back and made 8 more of them, and yeah, I haven't heard back for a couple of years now, but I assume that things are going well there.
Yes, well, a couple of things stick out to me there, Rene, is a good engineer never throws out his templates, right? Because you never know when you might need them again. And,
That's what,
and yeah, so you did about 15 tables for them, because they asked for about 7 and then 8 more.
yes, that's right.
Yes, and this is just a great example of the diversity of what you as a Tetra volunteer can do, whether it's a device for somebody individually or a device helping so many people throughout the year.
Yes.
That's used on a daily basis. And that always, like you said, you know, probably hundreds of people have used those tables or had fun together, made friendships. And then we always talk about Tetra devices helping people's quality of life. Well, to be able to breathe easier, to have more independence, and not be as dependent on a caregiver, those are just great stories, and you definitely should be very proud of what you've created there. And when you're fabricating these, you've talked about how you get some of the supplies and the process of visualizing the device, but when you're actually doing the fabrication, where does the actual building of the device take place?
Oh, okay. Well, we have a group in Edmonton here called the Edmonton New Technology Society. And they have a workshop that's complete with a metalworking shop and a woodworking shop, of which the Edmonton Tetra chapter is a member. So I can go there. I have a fob that allows me in anytime, day or night, to use their equipment. So I can use their woodworking equipment and their metal fabricating equipment. And then I do a fair bit of work at home also, I've got a little tool shop, and my living room sometimes becomes a workshop also. Yes.
Well, I can so appreciate that. I know for myself personally, everybody jokes because of course having a wheelchair, I never have to sit on a couch. So everybody says everything's a table to you. So when I need more space, just like you on a Tetra device, you just put stuff where you need and you figure it out later. And another thing I want everyone to know is Rene and Cody from the Edmonton chapter represented um, Tetra at our national conference in Ottawa, and I really enjoyed getting to know you, Rene. And many people said it was great to have you there to hear about things from a volunteer perspective.
Mm.
Because for myself and our coordinators, we try to promote Tetra and promote the work that you do, but you, the volunteer, are the one making the devices and coming up with the unique solutions for somebody's needs. So I really enjoyed getting to meet you. And I remember, you and I were talking, and you said, I don't watch TV. I'm out busy. I'm busy enough as it is. And I always thought there is a gentleman that's truly connected with his community and helping others. And I just thank you for your time today and sharing some of your great Tetra stories throughout the years.
All right. Yeah. Well, it was good to talk to you, Eric.
Okay, well, um, again, Renes made time for us this morning, but as you might imagine, he has other things to do today. So for now, we will say goodbye. But when you think of Tetra in Edmonton, Rene is one of the volunteers who continues to make a difference for many. So thank you so much, and I wish you a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, signing off.